I questioned whether or not it's worth it. I was completely shocked. I was working a corporate job that I absolutely hated. It exploded. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Marie and I'm the owner and creator here behind Soft Talker Reusables, where we make handmade reusable menstrual pads. In this video, I plan to talk about my story behind why I started this business, how I've gotten to where I am now, and a little bit about my goals for the future. If that's something that sounds interesting to you, please keep watching. So before I get into how I started this business, I need to give a little bit of backstory first. So when I first started my period, I didn't ever really receive a whole lot of education about the products available to me. All I was ever really told was, here's a pad, here's a tampon, this is what you use, and periods are generally uncomfortable, so you just have to suck it up and deal with it. So when I started to use these products and I was getting horrible blistering rashes that would take weeks to heal, I just assumed that was part of the periods are uncomfortable and you just have to deal with it part. I never questioned anything and I just sucked it up and dealt with it for over a decade. That was a decade worth of almost constant pain because those rashes took so long to heal that by the time they would be healed, I would have a few days and then be starting my next period and the whole process would start all over again. So now fast forward to my mid-20s, I was pregnant with my firstborn and I was looking into using cloth diapers. That was something that I wanted to use for her. While looking into that, I came across cloth pads. And if I'm being honest, my first reaction to seeing those cloth pads was kind of ick. I was like, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if that's for me, which I find especially ironic now looking back because I was looking into using cloth diapers. I was totally okay with washing out poop and pee, which is far dirtier than period blood, yet I was totally okay with that and I wasn't okay with washing pads. Now that being said, even though I had that ick reaction, I was still a little bit curious because of my experience, my rashes with disposable pads. So I started watching tons and tons of YouTube videos. People talking about how those rashes weren't necessarily normal, that there were other options, that maybe I didn't have to deal with all the pain that I was dealing with. So I kind of just decided, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. What do I have to lose? My rashes are so bad as it is, it's worth a try. Now I had been sewing since I was like 13 years old. I learned how to sew in middle school, so I knew that it was something that I would be able to do myself. I looked around the house, I grabbed fabric that I already had, I followed different tutorials that I found on YouTube, and I sewed my first set of cloth pads. Now when I finally decided to use those cloth pads, I was completely shocked by how much of an improvement it made for me and my rashes. In the 7 or so years that I've been using cloth pads, I have not had one single rash from them. When I got those rashes from disposables, like the second I wore that pad. Now that alone would have been enough for me to keep using cloth pads, but not only were they preventing all these rashes and I felt so much more comfortable, they were actually working way better for me. I used to struggle with leaking off like the edge of a disposable pad all the time, and because cloth pads are customizable, I was able to make a shape that had enough coverage and enough absorbency for me that I wasn't getting leaks anymore either. Now this fueled like a huge passion in me. Not only did I really enjoy the product itself and how it functioned, I really enjoyed making them as well. So I started sewing more and more for myself. I sewed for any friends and family who wanted them. I joined Facebook groups, Facebook sewing swap groups, so we would get paired with like somebody else on the internet that was sewing cloth pads and we would swap them just kind of for fun. And eventually I was sewing so many pads that I needed to do something different. I couldn't sustain the cost of all the fabric I wanted to keep buying to make these pads, so I decided to start a business. I opened up a Facebook group, which is where I started. I just sold basically custom orders, so people would say what they wanted from me and I would make that. It was very small, hobby scale, but it was kind of fueling that passion while I was still working my corporate job. Now that Facebook group grew way faster than I anticipated. I was only expecting to sew a handful of pads here and there, just enough to kind of keep me doing something that I was enjoying, but it grew way faster than I anticipated. At the same time as all of this, I was working a corporate job that I absolutely hated. I was growing my family. We had 2 children at this point, and my husband was working a job out of town. What we were doing wasn't working for us. We knew we needed a change. What we decided to do, I left my corporate job. I was very unhappy at it, with the plans of having this business be a little bit of side income to help cover the bills, and we moved to where my husband was working. So this is kind of how it went for about 3 years. I had this hobby side business. We had a 3rd child in the process of all of that, and everything was going really well. Now, come April 2021, our last child was about a year old. It was kind of time to decide what the next step was. Either go back to a corporate job to make more income, or try to grow this business. I knew that I really didn't want to go back to that corporate world. I really wasn't happy there. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to give it my best effort to really grow this business into something that is sustainable, that can earn enough of an income to help support the family. I went on more social media platforms, started to market that way. I built a website. I really put a solid effort into it. It exploded. By January of 2022, I was now earning about as much as my corporate job, and through all of 2022, it grew exponentially. I am doing even better. I have 2 employees now. We moved into a new city and a new place where I have this entire basement space behind behind me at roughly 800 square feet of space, and that is already becoming too small. We're growing so quickly, and I couldn't be more excited or more grateful for where it is now, where I'm able to help feed our family, doing something that I love and I'm super passionate about. Now, the business has grown tremendously, and I couldn't be more grateful for that, but that's not to say there haven't been a lot of challenges along the way. Growing a small handmade business from nothing, from the ground up, is a lot of work. There were many days, and frankly still are days, where I question whether or not it's worth it because I am putting so many hours in. I lose time from my family and I'm working so hard every single day. But then I go and I check my inbox, I go and check my social media comments, and I have people telling me that I have changed their life, that I have improved their relationship with their period. They now finally have comfortable period products that work and function properly for them. And getting that feedback is so incredibly rewarding that it makes every bit of hard work completely worth it. Now, that's kind of just like a bit of the story about how I've gotten to where I am now. Now let's just talk about a little bit about my goals for the future. I'd love to be able to expand into a bigger warehouse space, a space where I have enough room to be able to expand our product line. I'd love to be able to hold things like period underwear, plug for maybe a future addition to the shop, but also more options as far as different sizes and whatnot. Right now, although the space that I have is a significant improvement from what it was a year ago, I still am very limited. There's still only so much space that I can use or that I have, and storing more inventory, more raw materials, all of that takes space, as well as obviously all of the stuff needed to make the product and package the product and all of that. So that warehouse is kind of a next big step for us. And along with that, I hope to be able to hire maybe way down the road, this won't happen right away, but up to maybe 10 employees in total, with some of them being home-based, working on material from home, and then some working in the shop directly, because I think it would be super rewarding to have this business grow to be something that not only feeds my family, but that it can sustain and feed other families as well. I do hope to always keep everything as handmade in the shop as possible. There will be some exceptions. I'm sure there will be times where there's certain things we get sourced, but I do always want to have the goal of keeping everything really high quality handmade right here in our shop in Alberta, Canada. I do have a lot of other like little goals along the way, but those are the big ones. That's what I hope we are able to reach in, I don't know, maybe 5 years. But I do want to say that what I have learned in the last year with the rate of growth and how hard I pushed, I think one of the things I'm going to focus on in the future is sustainable growth rather than this rapid growth that I saw over the last year, because it was really hard on me and my family. So that being said, I just mentioned all those goals, but I don't have any sort of timeline for it. We'll take it as it comes, one day at a time. We'll do it as sustainably as possible. And I hope that within maybe 5 years, we're able to expand into that warehouse space. We'll get there when we get there. Now, in conclusion, finding cloth pads was life-changing for me in more ways than one. Not only just my personal experience and having so much more comfortable of a period, but also growing this business into being what it is, doing something I'm super passionate about, helping other people have that comfortable period is so incredibly rewarding, and I couldn't be happier. Now, I'd just like to leave this off with one piece of advice I'd like to give any of you that are also looking to start some sort of a handmade business. Make sure it's something you're super passionate about, because if I wasn't passionate about this, there's no way I could have pushed through the amount of work it took to really grow to what it is now. It really does take a lot of passion to be able to push through that. But if you are truly passionate about it and you do reach that, it is one of the best feelings in the world. And then along with that, do things at your own rate. You'll see so many tips and tricks and advice for how to grow a business really rapidly, and that's great. And if you can do that without, going insane, that's awesome. But understand what your own limitations are and work within those. If that means that growth takes longer, that's okay. It does not need to happen overnight. So thank you so much for watching this video, a little bit about me and about my story. If you'd like to know more, or you want to know more specifics, definitely leave me a comment and I can look into making another video that goes into more depth, more detail of like the nitty-gritty of what I have done to get to where I am now. And if you'd like to just follow along and watch as we continue growing and learn more about cloth pads and that sort of content, please subscribe and stay tuned until the next one. Thanks. Bye.